I am Daniela. I am a mother of a disabled child who is loved by all her family. When I found out that I would be having a disabled child, I was a little panicked because I knew raising a disabled child would be a little difficult. However, me and my husband Andrew did our best to take parenting classes to make sure that our son has the best parents to take care of his special needs. We were lucky to have the support of our whole family except my sister-in-law, Kristen. Kristen is Andrew's big sister who was also very close to me. We had a great relationship right up until the time I discovered that I was pregnant. From the day I announced the news, Kristen had started to act very weird towards me and my husband. We were patient with her because we knew that she had lost a child 8 years back. She was pregnant with her boyfriend's child, and unfortunately the child passed away from an accident shortly before birth. It absolutely crushed Kristen and ultimately caused her breakup as well. Now, she was single, but I knew she still wanted to be a mom again. My pregnancy went well, and I soon gave birth to my son. He is the most beautiful baby boy I have ever seen, and I know every mother thinks that way. Andrew and I were over the moon, and so were our families. Esma, my mother-in-law, actually cried with joy. Only Kristen didn't show up. She actually didn't show up for 6 months. And when we talked to Esma about this, she said, "My poor daughter is probably having a hard time with everything. Please don't be mad at her." "I'm not mad at her, Mom. I'm just disappointed. We have always been there for her, but she couldn't even bother to show up once to support me on my big day. It's been months already." "Please give her some time. I'm sure she will come around. I'll talk to her." Guys, I really did feel bad for Kristen, so I never pushed for her to meet the baby. She even saw our son at a family event and didn't walk up to us even once. In fact, she walked away when we tried to approach her. It really hurt us, and it felt like she didn't appreciate my baby getting so much attention. Andrew and I were a little annoyed, but that disappeared when Kristen finally called one day and said that she would come see us. Andrew and I were over the moon that Kristen was finally coming around. We really missed her and wanted our son to have a good relationship with his aunt. So we were pretty excited for the meeting. However, we didn't expect how it would turn out. Kristen came to the house and saw our son and actually turned away with a sour expression on her face. She said, "I honestly don't know why you kept it." "Excuse me, Kristen? What on earth do you mean?" "You should have gotten rid of your horrible disabled son when you had the chance, or you really should have listened to me when I tried to tell you what to do and not do when you were pregnant." Andrew and I were dumbstruck by what she said. First of all, she was openly telling us that we should have aborted our child. Then she told us that somehow I was responsible for this. In the beginning of my pregnancy, Kristen was being extremely overbearing with me. She was constantly over at my house and trying to control what I ate or did. I knew she was paranoid after losing her child and tried to make her stop as gently as possible, but we had to kick her out and set some boundaries when things got too much. Kristen took that personally and was now saying that she was giving the right instructions. Andrew and I were so baffled. He said, "You are being extremely hurtful and unreasonable, Kristen. We were constantly in contact with our doctors for everything Daniela ate and did. Our son's disability is completely unrelated." "Of course, you would say that now, Andrew. You never could see your wife's fault. You are just as bad as her sometimes." "What are you trying to say, Kristen?" "You are a pathetic and irresponsible mother, Daniela. I tried so hard to tell you that what you were doing will harm your child, but you will never listen to me. If you had, your child wouldn't have turned out disabled. You are a horrible mother, and your son had turned out to be horrible too. What a waste of space." I was absolutely shocked to hear what my sister-in-law had to say about me and my son. I wasn't expecting her to be so cruel and vile. Yes, she was acting weird during my whole pregnancy, but I chalked it up to her being sad and maybe jealous. But that day, I realized just what a horrible human being that Kristen truly was. I was super hurt, but also very, very angry. Before I could say anything, my husband angrily said to Kristen, "You don't know what you're talking about, Kristen. None of this is my wife's fault. Stop talking like that to my wife." "Oh, please. I will do whatever I want. If I was blessed with such a child, I would have taken good care of it so that it wouldn't have ended up being disgusting and disabled." "Don't you dare call my child disgusting. Say what you want to me. I don't care, because you were just ignorant and uninformed. But I will not tolerate you calling my child names." "I'm just telling the truth, Daniela. Your child is disgusting because he is disabled and deformed. You know what they say, right? God only blesses good mothers with healthy children. Looks like you are a bad mother, just like I predicted." "Stop this right now, Kristen. We both know why you're making comments like this. Don't think that just because you've lost a child, that means we will excuse whatever you say about children. How dare you bring up my rainbow baby? I lost my baby because I was in a horrible accident. I was a good mother and would have been one if my baby was given a chance to live. Your wife has intentionally spoiled her health and gave birth to a disabled child who no one will love. My husband and I love our child, and that is enough. In fact, you are the only one who has such a big problem with my child. You know what, Kristen? If you really think my son is so disgusting, don't bother visiting again." "Actually, I won't even give you that option. Leave my house right now and don't bother coming back. I don't want an evil and vile woman like you around my son." "You think that would bother me? It won't, Andrew. I don't want to see your ugly baby anyway. You can keep your child and fawn over its ugly features. I'm leaving. Oh, and remember one thing. Everyone loves your child only because he is the only grandchild right now. I bet everyone will turn their faces once I get pregnant and give birth to a healthy, normal child. Then everyone will forget your ugly baby just like I did." Kristen said that and left. Andrew and I were fuming, but after Kristen left, I actually broke down in tears. I hated the fact that my son's own aunt was so mean to him. Yes, my son didn't understand a thing that she said, but it didn't matter. Just knowing that Kristen was harboring so much hate for my son broke my heart. I was also a little scared that everyone else would follow in her footsteps once a healthy child came into the family. All these thoughts were plaguing me, and I didn't know how to deal with them. I must say that my husband is a godsend. When I was breaking apart, he held me and comforted me, driving away all my fears. He knew that some of my fears and anxieties were probably irrational, but he dealt with me patiently while I cried my eyes out. He said, "Don't cry, Daniela. You need to be strong for our baby. There are many cruel people in this world like Kristen. We can't let their words affect us." "I know, Andrew, but how could Kristen be like this to her own nephew? I hate the fact that there will always be one family member who will hate our son. I can't even think about what happens when he grows up." "Look, Daniela, I can't promise you that I will make my sister change her mind, but I will do my best to protect our child from her. I also hated how she blamed you for everything. She's just being jealous, that's all. She needs mental help, but that doesn't mean I will let her demean my family like that. You need to stay strong and teach our son how to deal with people like Kristen." My husband was right. If I broke down over some stupid comments, I wasn't going to be a good role model to our child, so I pulled myself together and wiped away my tears. I was going to be strong for my son. My son did get some extra cuddles and kisses that night from both his parents. He seemed happy, but later became annoyed because, well, he is an infant. They don't like it when you love them for too long. Andrew and I eventually stopped seeing Kristen altogether. We stuck to our word that we didn't want her around. She seemed fine with it for a few days until she started to complain about how we were being unfair to her. And that's when Kristen made my mother-in-law reach out and talk to us. So Esma just showed up one day to talk to us. She visited often to see our son, but this time she came to talk to us. Andrew and I knew what was coming and we prepared ourselves. Esma said, "What is this I'm hearing, Andrew? Your sister said that you have told her not to come to the house. You're ignoring her calls and not even talking to her. What's going on?" "Mom, you heard right. Daniela and I have decided to cut contact with Kristen." "What? But why? What happened so out of the blue? You can't do this to Kristen, Andrew. She's your sister. Don't you agree, Daniela?" Esma wasn't taking Kristen's side per se. She was just confused because the news was sprung on her by Kristen. I was pretty sure she hadn't even bothered to tell Esma why we want no contact with her. It was true that she tried to reach out once, but she never apologized. In fact, she doubled down when we asked her for an apology, so we ignored her calls and messages while she tried to get in touch with us. We never told Esma anything because we didn't want her to think badly of her own daughter, but it looked like Kristen wasn't interested in keeping her reputation intact, so I said, "No, Esma, I don't agree with that. I don't know what Kristen has told you, but we had good reasons to go no contact with her." "Really, Daniela? I can't imagine why you would suddenly go no contact. You all got along so well together. I know she acted a little odd when you were pregnant, but you should understand that she had a loss, so she was maybe a little jealous." "Mom, we have always been conscious about her pain. We have done everything possible not to hurt her. She overstepped her boundaries and started to control my wife's life. We still overlooked everything and we let her see our child. But what she did next was something we cannot forgive." "What did she do, Andrew? Tell me. I need to know why you were going no contact with your only sister." "I will tell you what happened, Esma. Kristen called our son disgusting and ugly because he is a disabled child." The moment those words left my mouth, Esma's mouth went wide open. She hadn't expected her own daughter to say these things. I could see that she was having a hard time digesting the information that I just gave her. She even looked at her son for confirmation and jolted back with disbelief when Andrew nodded yes to her query. Esma was truly taken aback and said, "Oh my God! What are you talking about? Kristen said this about my grandson?" "Yes, Mom, trust me, we couldn't believe it too when we heard her talk, but it is what it is." "This is so wrong. Oh my God. Just wait, I will talk to her and make her apologize. I'm sure she will understand once There is no use talking sense into her, Esma. We tried our best, but she wasn't even ready to apologize, let alone change her horrible mindset. Andrew then showed Esma the text exchanges that happened between him and Kristen. He showed her all the text to make her realize the extent of Kristen's horrible attitude. Esma read each and every text, although her eyes went wide with horror at the venom that her own daughter was spewing. She remained quiet for some time when she was done, and then she said, "I can't believe Kristen has said these things about my grandson and you, Daniela. I am so sorry on my daughter's behalf. Please don't cut her off. She is desperate for some contact." "I'm afraid we can't do that, Esma. I would have forgiven her if her insults were solely aimed at me, but she said some really nasty stuff about my son. I can't forgive that." "I know you're hurt and offended, but please think about Kristen too. She is still in pain after losing her own daughter 8 years back. She's not mentally well and lashing out." "Mom, that is not an excuse for her to be nasty towards us. I won't allow her to continue talking trash about my wife and kids like that. We will be civil, but I can't promise you anything else. I would try to get her some therapy and change her messed up thinking. I beg you to try and forgive her. She is family after all. I won't push for anything, but please do consider it. Did Esma's words annoy me? Yes, it did, but was I going to hold that against her? Of course not, guys. She was doing what I was doing. She was trying to protect her child while I was trying to protect mine. She didn't dismiss us completely or say that Kristen did something small. She was only telling us to eventually forgive Kristen. I couldn't hate her for that, so we maintained a civil front whenever we met with Kristen anywhere. Still, that rage inside me hadn't died, and I really wanted to teach her a lesson for what she did. I got that chance when my stepsister Raina came to visit us. Raina was with us for a couple of weeks because it was the first time she would see my son. Now, here is where things got interesting. Raina actually came into my life fairly recently, about 2 years ago. She and I became fast friends after my father married her mom. She had a then 8-year-old daughter who was adopted because Raina couldn't have kids. Both Raina and her child were welcomed into our family, and we have a deep connection. Also, Raina's child was also slightly disabled. So when Raina came over to see my son, I ended up venting to her about what Kristen did. She listened to everything and had a funny look on her face, and she said, Daniela, you know that my daughter is adopted, right? Do you know that she was adopted from here? Oh, really, Raina? I didn't know that, actually. Yes, she was given up for adoption because her mother and father didn't want to raise a disabled child. Oh my God, that is just horrible. I don't know why people are like this. That sounds like something Kristen would do, since she hates disabled children with a passion. I didn't know why I said that, perhaps because I felt bad for Raina's daughter. I should add that she is a very sweet child despite her mild disability, so I felt the same emotions I felt when Kristen was calling my son disgusting. My heart absolutely broke for Raina's daughter, so I couldn't hold my words. What I hadn't expected was what Raina told me after that. Here's the thing, Daniela. The girl who gave up my adopted daughter as in her biological mother was also named Kristen. Seriously, Raina? That's such a coincidence. How did you know that her name was Kristen? It was supposed to be an option for adoption because the mom and dad wanted to see the kid whenever they wanted, but the mom slowly went no contact and told us not to bother her after a few months. The dad is still in contact, though. There is a small possibility that your sister-in-law is the mother. That is horrible, Raina. But I don't think it was my sister-in-law. She actually lost the baby after an accident. Are you sure of that, Daniela? Is there a possibility that something else happened? Here is the thing, guys. There was definitely a possibility something else happened. When Kristen was pregnant, she was living with her then boyfriend in his apartment. We had no idea about her accident or when she went into labor. Very randomly, Kristen had called us crying one night saying that she was in a car accident and lost the baby. She was very close to her due date, but the kid didn't survive the impact of the crush. She was crying hard and told us not to visit while she was grieving. We respected her wishes and saw her after 10 days when we had the small child's funeral. By then, Kristen claimed that she had healed and cremated her daughter privately. Back then, no one questioned her story because why on earth would they? Why would someone lie about such a thing? Kristen was a mess and she cried for a long time. Eventually, she got over it, but still talked about her dead child from time to time. We even hold a small celebration every year to mark the birth of her child, who couldn't make it into this world. But there was still something amiss in her story, especially because we saw nothing in person. So I said to Raina, "Actually, I think there is a possibility she had lied to us, although I think it's highly unlikely. I am considering this only because we never saw anything in person, and this happened 8 years ago." See that, Daniela? My daughter is also 8, and she was born on the 19th of March. Does that ring a bell? Oh my God, yes! That's exactly the date when Kristen told us that she had lost her child. So Kristen may have actually given birth and given up the baby because she was born disabled? I can confirm that theory if you show me what your sister-in-law looks like. I wasn't there at your wedding and don't use social media, so I don't know what she looks like. I pulled out my phone and showed her a picture of Kristen. My mind was spinning with all possibilities. It was just too uncanny. And I knew that there could be a connection between all these similarities. When Raina saw Kristen's picture, her eyes went wide and she actually nodded yes. She confirmed that Kristen was indeed the mother who gave up her child because she was born disabled. Raina and I talked about this some more while I wondered about what I should do. I was getting more and more angry at Kristen for what she did. I really did want her to pay for not only insulting my son, but also abandoning her own daughter. There was also the fact that she had literally lied to all of us and kept her daughter away from us. It was just plain wrong. I knew that I had to tell Andrew what was going on, and I did. He was as surprised and mad as I was. He even pulled out some of their old pictures, and everyone could tell that Raina's daughter was a certain carbon copy of her biological mother, Kristen. There was zero doubts, just pure anger. Andrew said, "All this time I had no idea that I had a niece living out there somewhere. If it wasn't for you, I would have never known that." I can understand that Kristen panicked, but she shouldn't have gone to this extent of giving up her daughter. She didn't even ask her family for help. This is just insane. Now that we know the truth, I think we should tell everyone. The family deserves to know what happened to Kristen's child. If Raina is okay with this, of course. I have talked to her already, and she is okay with this. I too think that we need to let the whole family know. So what should we do? Andrew and I were both very angry and really wanted some justice, so I devised a little plan for some payback. It would allow us to expose and confront Kristen without giving her a chance to twist the story. Judging from how she lied for 8 whole years, I knew she would do anything to keep this a secret. I wasn't going to let her get away with that anymore. My husband and I devised a plan together and prepared ourselves for the grand confrontation. It was a family party where Andrew and I decided to confront Kristen. We told the host beforehand what was going on so that she wasn't ambushed. She was horrified to hear the story. She allowed us to execute our plan and do what we had planned to do. So we finalized everything, got permission from Raina, and acted on it. We took Raina's daughter to the party. She was very happy to attend the party because she loves being around people. We hadn't told her the truth because I knew it was a sensitive topic. I wasn't going to keep her around for the confrontation anyway. I wanted her to be comfortable around the family before we told her the truth. There was a separate area for the kids with a paid babysitter, so my niece wasn't going to see or hear anything. But before we went to that area, we had to walk past the main room. Everyone loved my niece because she was a sweet little girl. Even my Esma was highly impressed with her and found her adorable. But when my niece finally turned to Kristen, my sister-in-law absolutely froze. Her eyes went wide as saucers, and she visibly gasped when my niece introduced herself with her name. That's when my sister-in-law started acting really weird. Andrew quickly took our niece to the kids' area and returned to confront Kristen. It was time after all. Esma noticed Kristen's reaction and said, "What happened, Kristen? You're sweating. Are you feeling sick?" Yes, I may be getting a little sick." "What happened, Kristen? Did seeing my niece make you sick? You always said that you found disabled children disgusting." Whispers went around the room because people had no idea what went down between Kristen and us. They were surprised to hear what I said while Kristen was eyeing me suspiciously. I guess she had a feeling that I knew the truth, but she didn't have the face to say anything. It was Esma who chose to speak. Now is not the time for this, Daniela. This is a party and something might be wrong with Kristen's health. We can discuss this later. No, Mom, we need to discuss this right now because it is very important. I'm really not feeling well. I think I'll just leave. What's the hurry, Kristen? Are you afraid that the truth about you will come out? The way Kristen gulped said everything I needed to know. She was nervous and wanted to be out of the party as soon as possible. What made me more mad was that she didn't even care about the fact that she saw her own daughter after 8 whole years. All she wanted to do was save her back. She stammered a little and said, "What are you talking about, Daniela? What truth are you referring to? I'm not lying to anyone." You don't know what truth my wife is referring to, Kristen. You are still going to play dumb after we caught you red-handed? When will you tell everyone how you have been lying to us for 8 years? What are you guys talking about? What is Kristen lying to us about? Since Kristen is not keen on telling the truth, I will. I had been wondering for a while why she was so hateful of my pregnancy and my child. She said some nasty things about my child and how it was my fault that my son is disabled. Let me ask you this then, Kristen. Was it your fault that your daughter was disabled? Was that why you gave her away so that you could save face? Kristen went white with shock while everyone else looked on in full confusion. Everyone knew that Kristen had lost her child. She was so deep in grief that she refused to even talk about her dead child at all. Now, details about what happened was slowly coming out. Esma said in disbelief, "What are you talking about, Daniela? Kristen's child has passed away due to her accident. The child was never born." That is actually a lie, Mom. Kristen has been lying to us for 8 years. Her daughter didn't die. She was born with a disability, and that's why Kristen gave her away in secret. What? No, that's impossible. This is exactly what happened, Esma. Kristen was probably planning to take this secret to the grave, but we found out by chance. My niece, who I brought in today, is her biological child, and that's why Kristen suddenly got sick looking at her. Oh my God! That's why I had been thinking that the little girl looked a mini version of Kristen. I can't believe this. Kristen, is this true? Kristen knew that there was no point in hiding the truth anymore. She had that much sense to realize that we had proof of what we were saying, and eventually we would bring out the truth. So she simply hung her head and tears began to fall from her eyes. She simply couldn't say anything else. So Andrew said, "Don't bother lying, Kristen. We have plenty of proof to give to everyone that she is your child. Tell me, why did you lie to us? And why did you stop checking up on your child a few months into adoption? Were you so desperate to get away from her?" Oh my God! Why aren't you answering, Kristen? You lied to us for 8 years? How could you do this? Mom, I was scared. I didn't want a disabled child. So you gave her away? I would have adopted her and taken care of her. You didn't even give me that chance. You made up some terrible lies and even made us mourn your well and alive child for years. What is wrong with you, Kristen? This is why Daniela had to go out of her way to demean me and my child. She couldn't stand it that people were actually loving my child. It was making her feel guilty for giving away her own daughter while she had a chance to raise her within the family. What you have done is absolutely vile and disgusting, Kristen. You are the worst mother ever, and you dare to insult my wife? You should have looked in the mirror first. I can't believe you are my sister. I don't even want to look at you anymore, Kristen. How could you do this to us? Answer me! Kristen was then cornered by everyone who was present. Everyone kept berating her and absolutely tore into her. Kristen was on the verge of tears and didn't know how to defend herself. She deserved every second of that. I watched as she had to answer people for being such a horrible human being and getting called a horrible mom by everyone she knew. By the end of the night, almost everyone had told her not to contact them anymore, and she wasn't welcome in their houses. After the party, things turned out tremendously well for the family. With some professional help, we told my niece the truth about her biological family. She was excited but also very nervous, but the first meeting at the party gave us some hope that everyone would like her. We were busy making up for the lost time while Kristen was basically cut off from the family. Even Esmo isn't talking to her and wants her to stay away. Currently, she's enjoying her time with her 2 grandchildren, who she loves a lot. Meanwhile, Kristen is miserable and alone, finally facing the consequences of her own actions. As for me, I'm happy I got to reunite my niece with her bio family while serving some cold revenge on Kristen.